All right, here we are going live on August 15th, streaming live here on YouTube. We're going to be talking about tons of Cueanon posts. I think he had nearly 30 of them today. We're talking about Q versus the world, controlled opposition. We're talking Mossad over the alternative media as well as the U.S. media, as well as U.S. politicians. So we're going to dig into this heavily right now. Sorry for the false start there a bit ago. Didn't have some of the settings set, but it looks like the sound's going pretty well according to the feedback here. Let me know what's going on here. So here we go. We're talking about Q versus the world. We're talking controlled opposition. It is something that's amazing. People that have been red-pilled, it's almost like another level of red pilling to understand the sophistication of controlled opposition. So let's dig into that a little bit and get into some of the Q posts. There's a lot of them today, so let's get started. We may have to cut a little bit of short, probably won't go any prophecies, and I'm probably going to split this into two parts. It's so large, right? So first of all, I need to go back to 1865 from yesterday, right? There was a lot of discussion about InfoWars, and people like Jack, is it Pozobiec? And so those people that are these alternative media, a lot of the alternative rebel media, etc. And what's going on with that? They're actually attacking QAnon. And so it's Q versus the world now. So to further dig into this, there was a Neon Revolt post that was awesome, neonrevolt.com. You can find his post there. It's extremely thorough and long, so we're not going to go over all of it. But I wanted to show you a couple things. There's something really important for you to understand, and that is what Vladimir Lenin said, over Russia during the evil communist days. He says the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Let me repeat that. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. That's Vladimir Lenin, okay, of the old Soviet Union, communist days. So you have you have your push and your propaganda, and you're getting most of the people on board. And then when there's an opposition that fires up, you want to lead that. Why? Because you can give 90% of the stuff that's true, but the 10% that really matters, you corrupt and make them fall in line. And I believe that's exactly what's happening here. The Vladimir Lenin sophisticated way of controlling the opposition is being played out in our alternative media right now before our eyes. A very sophisticated level of manipulation. So let's dig into this. This is important. So I've gone to this neonrevolt.com, and I'm all the way down to his 1865 now. There's a bunch of other stuff before that was review of other stuff we've already seen. You guys have seen 1865 if you saw my video yesterday, but I want to go to another level of detail with Neon Revolt. Obviously, this Anon said, note to A.J. Shills. Nobody hacks a site and brings it down, but publishes a useful and informative redirect page. It's effing obvious this is a staged attack. Why am I not surprised? And then Q publishes that, almost acknowledging it in many ways. Most of the time he does that. And he says, actors will act. And then he switches topics a little bit. It says, we target NBC. NBC targets Q. Strategic, ? We are in control, Q. So we are in control. That's very good news, right? When Q's against the world, it looks like. He says, we are in control. He was expecting this. This is part of the whole wake-up thing. Wait till more people get online, etc. So let's look at what he says here. Remember that Alex Jones has lots of CIA and Stratfor connections. Jones plays the role of what a conspiracy theorist is supposed to look like. It was even stated by his lawyers in a recent divorce case, he is not actually crazy. He is just a character he plays. And so, interesting. So, and again, I know there's a lot of discussion here. AJ, Alex Jones actually was part of my awakening. It's part of a lot of your awakenings. And then a lot of you are defensive right now as this even been discussed because of the great work that Alex Jones has done to wake people up. But remember what Lenin said. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves, Vladimir Lenin. So when he backed off Pizzagate, when he just went berserk on Trump, calling him an F and this, for over Syria. He went hysterical on and then he turned Corsi against us, and actually he lied to my face in videos, lied to my face, as well as Corsi, lying about stuff I knew was an absolute fact on QAnon. Very specific things, saying Q was taken over, it was a different person. It was completely consistent. They completely lied to their audience. So I believe they are controlled opposition. So we'll dig into that a little bit more here as we look through these. Now here is Jones, and then he goes into this whole thing about this guy named, he thought Q missed something, because this guy basically, this blacklist Anon, basically started really investigating the president of NBC, I think it's Oppenheim, and found a ton of crap on him. And so I think all this is going to be coming out later. But I think Q this is not the right time for Q. So later you'll see Neon Revolt backtracks and says, "Oh, Q, you were on top of this way before this guy was." So I'm going to kind of skip that part. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take credit away from QAnon and everything the Q team is doing. And I'm very glad NBC is being targeted by Q team. But NBC wrote that first article the day after these drops came out. And again, this was that black Anon. So this is Q. And then it says, this reads like Trump already knew about the spying before Admiral Rogers came to him and officially blew the whistle. That was a cool thing about 1866, is it clearly pretty much said, the world is watching, the world is here. But what I thought was most cool about this, he basically said, we've had the ball the entire time, right? This would imply that Trump team was feeding bad actors bad intel the whole time. They hesitated when told. When you think they would clear out immediately, they also didn't make a huge deal of it at the time. They just shifted operations. That's when they moved out of Trump Tower. So one would suspect that even Admiral Rogers' disclosure was pre-planned on some kind of schedule. He would take the bullet in the view of the public, deal with years of legal trouble and losing his home as a result, in order to make sure this all came to light in an official capacity. Thank you, Admiral Rogers. Justice is coming. Then we remember 1867 elaborated on that, saying they are in full-blown panic mode. Enjoy the show. Each fake news article written or attack is a badge of honor, military grade. Reaction gifts take up a lot of server processing power. Sometimes it's worth it. So here's this little picture you see. This gonna be good. This gonna be good, right? Everybody's watching, waiting for the show. This said, one Anon thought he spotted a coded message in Q's drop. He started outlining the T and the P and the S and at military grade attack, and then his server got attacked. It came back up, so I'm not really sure exactly what this was, but it says as soon as an Anon discovered and posted your clues, the site was attacked. It soon came back online, so I'm not sure what that was all about, but interesting. DOJ airplane in Arkansas. Do not link to the Clinton Foundation. So he talks a little bit about that. We talked about the DOJ plane in Little Rock loading up those boxes just a short while ago in this article. And so there's a link to this article, which I'll include, obviously, in the neonrevolt.com. QE's telling us that he had nothing to do with the Clinton Foundation, which is a surprising twist. So what was DOJ doing, loading boxes of presumably evidence down in Little Rock? So there's a lot of discussions about that. And then 1869, it says way too much speculation about the plane. And then he gives us more details about the plane, right? So we reviewed this yesterday, so I'm quickly going over this. Remember the Sky King? How could you forget? The Mystery of Sky King and Bill Maher's Open Secret. So there's a whole another bunch of articles you link to Neon Revolt discussing these things in more detail. But Q here confirms that the Sky King event was indeed a white hat event. This is the Q400 plane, right, that was over in the Seattle area, as I heavily suspected given everything we had. And he fills in some of the blank spaces we had in our story. And I did suspect some kind of surface-to-air missile site, a SAM, for those who read the original story. So this prompted me to go on and dig, and oh boy, did I dig some interesting things. So rarely, he went and looked for all these islands. So he looked at this island, and he's thinking, whoa, this could be interesting, that all these billionaires that owned island in these area around the Seattle area. Figured I'd drop this here before I drop this on my site in a few hours after I'm done reading and writing and researching. So he's on he's on the Anon boards, the 8chan, and posting to other Anons a bunch of this stuff. So here's what he was researching. He gave us 2 criteria for looking around that area. There had to be a billionaire, and this billionaire had to have a private island. I started searching and came up with the name James Jannard, the billionaire who started Oakley. And the guy who started Oakley went public, sold the company to Luxottica for billions, then started Red Camera, which gave him a ton of Hollywood connections. The island he bought, Cueanon Island, used to be a private hunting enclave filled with exotic animals. Rich people could fly in at the private airstrip and spend days shooting things. Sound familiar? Think Black Forest. Wow, guys, this would be ugly. Oh, and that's not the only island that he owns. He also owns, ready for it, the Fiji Islands of Kabu and Vantuvara. I think we've got a likely candidate for a SAM operator. And just geographically for a moment, drone plane takes off from SeaTac, heads northwest, missile is fired from Cueanon Island, drone redirects south to put some distance between itself and the missile. F-15 takes off from Whidbey and intercepts the missile. They remain in the air as an escort. White hats crash the drone for some reason we haven't completely understood yet. What's that look to you, Anons? So anyway, here's another theory about that plane. That this guy with the islands actually could afford to have a SAM and actually operate a missile. And I think the missile came from the sub originally, and this is kind of a stretch for me. But anyway, just another theory with the billionaires owning those islands. I thought that was interesting research I wanted to go back to get you guys. That I thought Neon nailed it. And here's some more details about this James Jannard. Net worth is $4.1 billion with a B. As a boy, right? And it's got some pictures of this and some more details about this island. And you can go read about this island if you would like to in more detail. But he really thinks he has something. Here's a picture of where the Cueanon Island is. Here's the Oak Harbor. I believe that the plane actually crashed way down here in Cueanon Island, right? Way down here, about 25 miles south of the SeaTac airport. And you can see here that there's Whidbey Island and there's that island. So remember that camera was here. So this is in the vicinity of where that missile was shot at Air Force One. So interesting analysis there. And the icing on the cake is this guy's connection to Fiji. Come on, not 1 but 2 islands? Guy has to be cabal connected. So whole big subject there. Boy, do we have a lot of subjects to get to tonight. One Anon responded, and this, I'm not going to go into this. This is basically a whole nother deal about the satanic rituals they do, etc. on these islands. And you can go look at these videos if you'd like about those satanic rituals they do. A little more detailed on this island. And he's talking a little bit about another island that a billionaire owns, Allen Island. So there's a couple of candidates as Anons are doing their great research about where this missile was actually fired from with these potential SAMs versus a submarine. And I think it was a submarine myself, but that's where I am. There's also a guy who owns that island now, Eric C. Anderson. He's a chairman of Space Adventures Limited. So yeah, you've got a possible rocket connection here too. So I'm thinking it's got to be one of the two. It's also entirely possible that both islands are cabal affiliated, albeit in different ways. We'll leave it to Q to verify. The things I still don't understand: why the plane crashed where it did, the significance of Cueanon Island, if any, the reports by the media that the body was found in the wreckage. So I'm just going to pause a second and look at my people that are online to see if anything's going wrong. Is just make sure that the sound is good, etc. Right? So don't see any urgent messages coming from the guy to say. Just want to make sure. Just check in one time each video to see if it's going here. So moving on. Now here we go to another whole nother subject. It says Q response to this post by the Anons. Who responded to Q post about the DOJ plane? So proud to be part of this. It's a whole lot of attention for a LARP. And this is when Q gave 1870. Said, not since WikiLeaks Podesta dump. And he went over all that, and we read this yesterday, so I'm not going to go over it. But because there's somebody actually goes into more detail, decoding this in more detail, and I thought I'd read that with you. Anon has a pretty good line by line here. He didn't differentiate with those, but I thought you were smart enough to parse it out and follow along. So this is both Q and his responses. So I'll try to help out here. I thought this was a cool review of this 1870. It says, not seen since the WikiLeaks Podesta dump. That Q said that. Then he says, there hasn't been this much media deflection from reality since the fall of 2016 when @WikiLeaks dropped the Podesta emails. And then Q said, similar in nature to attacks on POTUS. And he says, yes, it's similar in nature because the same actors were exposed by WikiLeaks as Q POTUS now, really. So I think that's a real good, decode of that. Then Q says, think waves, think coordinated, think all outlets utilized, plus fake MAGA. And he says, WikiLeaks released the emails in waves and in order based on the content and impact, IMO. Q's drops are well-timed and coordinated with POTUS's actions. Presumably, once the enemy media, and their handlers woke up to the Q phenomenon, now their response, 4 a.m. talking points, are also being coordinated. Just wait until the sniveling, crying Jimmy Kimmel does some unfunny Q attack Anons. And then Q says foreign and domestic. And then this guy says from the BBC to other cabal-controlled international medical outlets, the now is, and I think he meant the New World Order, the New World Order is not going to give up without a fight. Lord D+, Red Shield, and plus. Right, talking about Lord D. Rockefeller, the Red Shield, and the Saudi Arabia, right? Soros. And have been bemoaning the rejection of the New World Order and the rise of populism and nationalism. Are the emails in the WikiLeaks Podesta dump authoritative? And it says 100% are authentic. WikiLeaks has a 10-year record of pristine and authentic leaks. More than a few of the emails had Google verifications. Then it says, has POTUS made a statement as president that hasn't ended being true and correct? Not at all. Not one. All true. His wires were tapped. Comey is a slimy loser. Hillary Clinton is so corrupt. How corrupt? So corrupt that she was kicked off the Watergate Commission. Destroy the narrative, Q says. And he says, on it, Q. We will destroy them with God's help. So I thought it was this really cool decoding of 1870 that we went over yesterday. Here is a message received. Many newbies onboarding. That meant we're going to have more repeats are going to be necessary because more and more people are coming on. So you guys have to be a little patient. I'll keep the whining to a minimum about the fact that we have to keep new people up the board. But hey, that's why I'm here. That's why we should all be here, right? So 1871 is the one that I based this whole video on. If you look at Mossad over the alternative plus the U.S. media and U.S. politicians and these dots here, basically you have a two-pronged attack. The Mossad controls the U.S. politicians, both the Republicans and the Democrats. They control many of the other parts of obviously the State Department, etc. as well, the CIA, NSA, and many of the weaponized parts of the executive branch. And then they also, look at this, is really interesting. It's not just the U.S. media, it's also the alternative media. So he's clearly showing those who scream the loudest. So whoever's yelling about Q is false the most is the most predictable that are being controlled by the Mossad. Find the connections. 1111. Primary, affiliate A, affiliate B, affiliate C, marching to the same beat. Coincidence? Logical thinking Q. So Neon Revolt says, Mossad again. They're at the top. Q has previously talked about the 4 a.m. secure drop system they have, but that was CIA, if I remember correctly. So is Q confirming that the CIA is controlled by Mossad? The thing that might surprise some, however, is how not just the media, but the alternative media is controlled. Outlets like InfoWars? Question mark. You better believe it. Ezra Levant's rebel media? Yeah, controlled. This is the Hilligan dialect in action, folks. The elites control the thesis and the antithesis, or the antithesis, right? They control the thesis and the antithesis in order to get everyone to arrive at the predetermined synthesis, their true goal all along. As for the dots, if you're counting, you have 23 dots on the left and 25 dots on the right. I'm not sure of the significance of that yet, if there is any. And so that's back to these dots that were right here, right? It's interesting that 23 is a big number, though, right? But since it's talking about the alternative in U.S. media, I don't think it's really talking about that there. But this is really critical, guys. This is Q versus the world. That's the title of the video I put here. And just think about some of these people that are famous alternative media that have woken people up. Now they've sold out, it looks like, or maybe they're being bribed or controlled with threats. But somehow the Mossad and the deep state, criminal Mockingbird media now has control over the alternative media, the big boys, the InfoWars, the rebel medias, etc. That is scary stuff. But again, Q told us he's under control, so he was expecting this. So you better believe it. And what I see, affiliate A, affiliate B, etc., I think of news station affiliates scattered across the country, all getting their marching orders from the central headquarters. Annan has a good thought on the 1111 deal. It says, Q's largest graphic explains why Israel is last. For a good reason. The Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, is who is directing the media and anti-U.S. politicians and anti-UK and anti-etc. The 1-1 part tells me that they keep their lines very distinct, which means that one person knows only who is above and who is below them. Therefore, if someone is turned, only a small number of the cabal are implicated. This leads to the reason Israel is last. They have to work their way up through many lines of command back to the top, else the cabal will just regenerate due to having just a few of its Hydra heads removed. So this plan is elaborate and deep, and it's the reason why the Mossad's last. Now, I don't think everybody in the Mossad's evil, but I think the majority of it is similar to the majority of the CIA, or at least a good portion of the CIA is. But we'll see. This is may me eat some crow, because a lot of people that like Bill Smith who've been saying Mossad, and Zionist, and this is Q potentially pointing out that they control the whole at least the Mockingbird media part of this. 1872. This is the Walmart shoot up, and I'm just going to go to, and we read this last night, so if you want more detail, go back there, but I'm just going to read what Neon Revolt talks about this. He says, Q references the post where they tried to blame the airplane explosions on Q. Yep. So now they're trying to pin the fires they started in California on Cueanon. Great. And here's the 1873, which we reviewed last night. Hoover Dam guy was a false Q follower too. Remember the one who stopped traffic and demanded the release of the OIG report? So they're trying to pin anybody who believes in Cueanon is crazy. The problem is they have millions of us now, and people, and there's so much new information that's factual coming out. They're in big trouble. That's why I think Cueanon's saying we're under control. Even alternative media, attack me. False mainstream media, attack me. Try to do false flags around. It's not going to work. I'm just realizing who this exclusive video was posted by. None other than Rebel Media contributor Laura Loomer. You might remember the stunt she pulled at Shakespeare in the Park with fellow Rebel Media contributor Jack I practiced this. Prozobic. Prozobic. So Jack Prozobic. And they did that big deal there. You know, the attention grabbing stunt they organized, the one where they had donation sites ready to go beforehand. Yes, America, here is your controlled modern millennium voice of conservatism. So this Laura Loomer, maybe this Jack Prozobic, Alex Jones, guys, they probably, maybe through control of like the firm, through some type of blackmail and bribing or even blackmailing or even threats or maybe even money. The alternative media is controlled by Mossad, according to Cueanon. That's scary stuff. You also recall that Jack Prozobic, who now works for One American News Network, was working all last week on debunking Q. So much so that the Daily Beast took notice. So here's the Daily Beast talking about Make a Great American Again versus Q. So remember the fake MAGA? So basically, the Mossad's using fake MAGA, alternative media people, to attack the truth. So this says Trump allies struggle to stop QAnon spread. Fearing the left will turn the conspiracy theory against them, the president's cheerleaders try to take sense into grassroots. It's not working. Well, it's not going to work because this is the truth. This is the true movement. This is what military intelligence and Trump have been working on for years, even before he got elected. This is the plan. Trust the plan. This is the cabal going down. The cabal's doing everything in their panic mode to stop it, including bribing or getting control somehow of the alternative media. That's the big news I wanted to make sure everybody understood out of this video, is that be careful who you follow, because they have now gone to a very detailed sophistication layer where they even can take the people that have red pilled us in the past, the people who still do 90% red pilling, but the 10% of the important stuff, such as the pedogate that's deep, that connects back to the cabal, and such as things like knocking out the cabal in Syria and QAnon, the very things that we need the alternative media to support us on, they bail on us. They've bailed on us. Why? Because they're controlled. They're controlled opposition. Just like we talked about, just like Vladimir Lenin says, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. So guys, that is scary stuff, but I really think we need to all be on top of this. We need to get more sophisticated with our red pilling. This is not just about getting people off of mainstream media. This is also letting them know about controlled opposition. So here's this says, Q is right when he says fake MAGA. I think that definitely applied to folks like Loomer and Prozobic. And so what do you guys think? That is crazy. That is just crazy to me. It was a light bulb went off to me tonight. I mean, I've been talking about this for quite a while, right? But now I didn't realize it wasn't just Corsi and Alex. It was actually tons of other people that they've already got control of, right? Obviously, there's a lot of others that are doing anti-Q videos as well. So are they controlled, or are they just fooled, or what's going on with them? No word on what the stinger means yet. And so that was 1874. Maybe it will be disclosed in time. 1873 had 2 Q's at the end, just a typo. We saw that. So we read 1876 last night too. Wait, playdates? Do you remember when he said something about playdates? Ugh. So Google were the ones providing the technical know-how for just Obama and Hillary, for not just for Obama and Hillary and those types, but all of the deep state worldwide. That's insidious. No, so that's my wife's thing coming up there. And read the Q drop. They use these Google channels for everything they wanted to hide. Probably need to tell my wife that to not be including me in these, why I'm live here. And notice how Q puts elected in quotation marks. I'll try to close this down real quick so I don't. It looks like I'm not sure how to even close this down. Apologize, guys, but you might get some text there. And notice how the Q puts elected in quotation marks. The X key source and PRISM tools, spying tools built on the NSA, were kept from these people because white hats were actively trying to surveil them. When the existence of these programs was suddenly exposed by Edward Snowden, it set the NSA back. Well, I want to say at least one Obama term. Think about it. Equals Obama might have been out after one term, but for Snowden. Gah! So that is interesting. So I think I said this ES was Eric, because they were talking about Google up here. But I think since they were talking about this X key source, several of you subscribers corrected me, and I defended it and was wrong. It was Edward Snowden. It wasn't Eric Schmidt in this context back here in this post 1876. So I stand corrected there. Good job, guys, for keeping me up. That's what I love about this community. You guys are smart. You guys are red-pilled. You're learning with me, and as we decoding. And I love how to just my main thing is to teach you how to use these tools, not to believe everything I say. Question. We need to question this together. Come to the right solutions. Here's a bunch of stuff about the DARPA being all over us. Yep. This should be common knowledge by now, though. We've talked about this kind of thing a lot. And so it's Q. These tech companies are not your friends. They're intrusive oligarchs. All I'll say this. If you're a parent, make sure your kids don't have Snapchat or anything like that. Those apps are complete honeypots full of degenerate materials. Make sure the kids aren't using them. So here is the whole thing about the Muslim Brotherhood that came out. You all have heard this bit of news by now. There was an Islamic compound raided in New Mexico where they were training a number of children to become school shooters. Buried under the compound were the remains of a 3-year-old boy, which article acknowledged there. I'm going to skip that because we talked about this yesterday, but I just wanted to get Neon Revolt's take on this. I thought it was just brilliant. Why is this judge allowing the transfer of this particular individual and the release of the others on bail? Remember what Q said about the border states? They're special cases. Remember how difficult it was for this raid to even occur in the first place? Cops couldn't get a warrant for the longest time, and the owners of the land couldn't kick these people off their land. The Islamists were squatting on their property. Make no mistake, this is real-life terror cell, not a homestead, with familiar connections to the World Trade Center co-conspirator. These people are being protected by higher-ups looking to cause chaos. Maybe I'll have someone really qualified I know step in and do a feature about the way the Muslim compounds have cropped out all around the nation, or cropped up all around the nation. Most don't even know they're there. Once you see the full extent, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for Q when he talks about infiltration by the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, so the 1879 got into this poor guy being abused by Catholic priests. I think it was in Philadelphia. This is heart-rending stuff, Neon Revolt says. A few years back when this stuff was starting to bubble up to the surface, it was waved away as isolated cases. Q is telling us it's anything but. It's systemic. Are there good Catholics? Sure. Just like there are good Orthodox and good Protestants. My hope is that Christians of all stripes will reunify into one true church, a church that actually loves each other and serves God instead of some sick cabal. Let me reread that. I just love this. For you guys know that's my hope. I talk about unity, etc. My hope is that Christians of all stripes will reunify into one church, a church that actually loves each other and serves God instead of some sick cabal. And that would be the true God that I talk about all the time. I just thought that was amazing. So this is why I had to get into Neon Revolt's post from yesterday, and really, just because I just thought there was a lot more depth into what I reviewed with you yesterday, and I needed to get into that with you. And this goes just more into the Laura Silsby stuff, and you can go dig into more stuff where she was trying to basically bring people out of Haiti and trafficking kids, and got off, and the Clintons helped them get out. You can go look into that in more detail if you'd like here. Is exactly the Silsby game plan, right? So, this now starts getting into 1881, where we get into we're still into August 15th, right? Oh, no. So now I think we've moved into the 15th finally. Yay! So I'm going to catch up. I'm going to go over here to the Q board just to make sure we know when today's post, when we moved from August 14th to today, which is August 15th, right? And yeah, there was August 14th. So we went back quite a ways, got through. Okay, here we are, August 15th. Perfecto. So the first one is this 1879, as you see. If it'll move for me. And it's talking about Haiti, right? 1880. So I'm going to go back to Neon Revolt because he goes through the first part of these, so we can just hit them here. 1881 he's at. And this talks about Haiti. And it's got a YouTube there, and it says read very carefully. And it has this article about current affairs. Sunday nights, Matt Drogan goes undercover with Operation Underground Railroad to bring down Haiti child sex rings. So a great article that he wants us to read very carefully. Another YouTube video about the Trump, I think when he was down there actually campaigning in Haiti, and they were talking about all the horrible crimes that were happening there. But here's a quote he really wants us to understand out of that. Child trafficking victims who spent their formative years servicing the carnal desires of men, often foreigners, who are 3, 4, 5, or 6 times their age. Their madam tells me that many of their customers are Western humanitarian workers who've come here to help rebuild Haiti after the recent run of natural disasters. The more you know. Now, guys, here's another big light bulb went off to Neon Revolt as well as me today when the more you know. Do you see that? You can go here and to the Q board, and I'm not going to do it here, but go to the top and type in the more you know, and you'll see. I think it was 12 different deals, and it's talking about these public broadcast announcements that NBC does. It's linking all this trafficking to NBC. Whoa! And that's what we're going to see a lot in the future here. And here's a Q actually amplifies on that with another quote from the article. This is far from a vigilante group. Leading the team is ex-Department of Homeland Security Special Agent Tim Ballard, perhaps America's foremost human trafficking expert. Here's a quote from him. The problem in Haiti is an international crisis, Ballard explains. With so many children displaced or orphaned during the recent earthquake and hurricane, recruiters moved quickly to sweep these children up. And the worst part of it is that in many cases, the clients are the foreigners who have come here to help. The clients, the NGO workers, and the so-called humanitarians. And Q has all capitals saying pure evil. Hunters become the hunted. The more you know, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, Q. And hunters he has in 4 kill brackets. So the hunters are these foreign nationals that are supposed to be humanitarian people under the cover of humanitarian workers, and they're literally participating in the sex trafficking and in the sexual acts down at these places. So this is sick, and you know what and it's actually linked to? The more you know. That's NBC. Here we go. I promise I didn't read ahead when I chose the quote above. Q thinks it's notable, too. So it's good we're on the same wavelength. And this is, again, Neon Revolt commenting. I'm suspicious of this Tim Ballard character simply because he is a clown. But that doesn't mean he's one of the rotten insiders. And the more you know, oh my goodness, He's been signaling it since July 1st. I take it back, Q. You were the first on the NBC drops, not blacklisted on. So that's funny. In the very beginning of this, I showed you the blacklisted on stuff, and now he realizes once he got the more you know and looked at it, July 1st was the first time that Q used this. So he's been on top of basically attacking NBC since July 1st. NBC probably knew that, and it took a while to basically, we've got to attack this QAnon thing. We've got to stop QAnon thing with the rest of the mainstream media, right? And just in case you were still not getting it, the more you know are those public service announcements that run on NBC. Just go to YouTube, type in the more you know NBC or PSA, and you'll see there's Bill Cosby talking about reading and all these public service announcements. It's called The More You Know. I know you've seen them. In fact, here's a little 6-second thing to kind of show it. The more you know, right? That they introduce a lot of these on. I do believe Q is linking NBC to human trafficking. I just went back and looked at all the drops where it's mentioned. Here are a list of all the program supporters, because apparently 22nd corporate PSA needs supporters like this. The more you know, here's a list of the supporters. Is Q pointing out all the bad organizations? Not really seeing any saints in the list. Why are so many orgs required for 30-second spots? And so it's got this link here. It's got the U.S. Department of Education. It's got them, and just a ton of different organizations like Teach and Too Small to Fall. All you can see them all. Boys and Girls Clubs, City Year, Diversity, just NACP, etc., etc. And so you can see the list of goes on and on and on and on here. No wonder they're in total panic mode. That said, 4 brackets is the most Q has ever used. They're coming for the traffickers. The hunters become the hunted. Reminds me of this. It's another video that I don't have time to play because it's too long, but it basically just shows Trump coming at people, right? And then the 1882 actually shows NBC logo with an article, and it says read very carefully. And I read through this, and we're not gonna have time to really nail this, but wow. And so I'm just gonna get Neon Revolt's take on it. First, before we read, I think it's important to review because this event slipped by a lot of people, but not by yours truly. Now, this is a feed captured from a satellite, so it cuts out a few times, and it's still worth watching. Donald Trump Haitian town hall meeting. So this is when he was in the town hall, and I'm not going to play this because it's like 8.5 minutes, right? But it literally shows all these people talking to Trump before the election, 9/16/16, as you can see, and really wanting Trump to get elected because they know the evil of the Clinton Foundation of what happened. Trump had a major campaign stop in Little Haiti back in 2016. I remember watching this and subsequently watching it get no coverage in the press and being amazed at the testimonies like the one above. And that gentleman didn't even get into anything related to human trafficking. So they basically, Bill Clinton tried to buy him off and make him rich, but he wouldn't do it. And so they had him arrested. He went through hell for not basically bending down to the cabal in Haiti. Great testimony if you want to go look at that. But to get into the Q article, here it is, the Clintons in Haiti, what really happened. And Haitian activists accused the Clintons of enriching themselves through their foundation work in the Caribbean island. True or false? And if you look at this, there's a lot in here. I'm not going to link this, but one of the graphics showed, I think, only 7% of the money actually went to Haitian people and organizations, and all of it was coming to all these outside organizations. And they built a building there that might be being used for improper purposes, and kicked farmers out. And so it was just an ugly situation of what really happened here. And I think it's going to be coming out soon. And so this facility that they built, right, they think that facility is being used for much more than production, as they claim, right? That's the big question mark. 1883 has 2 more YouTubes, and it says, We Stand Together Q. The classic. So this is the classic. Just, hey, this video will get him elected. The beautiful thing about talking about all the corruption going on, etc. One of my favorite videos. You can go back and listen to that if you have time. I think it's 7 or 8 minutes. Then there's a "We must fight." This is President Reagan saying, hey, you can have peace right now, the next second. All you have to do is surrender, right? But they're not, weren't going to surrender to the Soviet Union. They fought, and that's what Q wants us to do. He wants us to fight here, right? So that's what that's all about. Q is counting again, as he should be. After all, it's almost time for the entire world to wake up. So that's the end of the Neon Revolt article. And that ended at 1883. So let's keep going for a while. So that was 1880, 1882 with NBC, and 1883. Let's get to 1884. This is fascinating. 1884 says, SA access closed, talking about Saudi Arabia. So and I think it's talking about the trafficking, is what I believe 1884 is talking about. The access to trafficking in Saudi Arabia is closed. Epstein Island access closed. Haiti access closed. North Korea access closed. China access closed. Russia access closed. Cuba access closed. Sudan access pending. Government, Saudi Arabia, U.S. push. Syria access pending. Government. Yemen access pending. Government. Saudi Arabia, U.S. push. Libya access pending. Main port closed, limited. Somalia access pending. Saudi Arabia, U.S. push. Q. So great news. Major, massive progress is being made, right? So that's I think it's inspiring on 1884. 1885 gets into some more articles. Another article. This is from Fox News. Trump revokes security clearance for former CIA director John Brennan, and that's been all over the news. That's what basically most of the conservative media is covering right now. And it's just amazing to see what John Brennan's, how he's reacting, how CNN's acting. They're just freaking out, right? Like it's some, like, and they have these talking points that are really clear. The talking points is that Trump has an enemy list. You'll see almost everybody use that term. It's the 4 a.m. talking points. All of them are going to be talking. They talk about him being Brennan being a true patriot. Oh, can you believe that? Calling John Brennan one of the biggest traitors in history, a true patriot, right? So they've got 3 or 4 talking points you can see in almost everybody's message, right? Coming out trying to paint Trump in a bad light for doing just simply taking away some security clearance. This is a good sign. This means we're getting close to the end here, because he wanted them to have the security clearance so he could catch them doing stupid things before. Now that they're closing down the security, to me, that's the indication that we're getting closer to the end of this thing. 1886 is my favorite part. We're talking scripture now. I love it when Cueanon posts scripture from the Word of God, for the biblical text, confirming from the one true God who's revealed himself, right? And he talks about Corinthians 13, 4 through 13 here. And I think that's actually wrong, because that's too many verses, and it's only showing one verse. So I probably should have looked that up real quick. But anyway, Corinthians chapter 13 talks about, quote, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." And that's in Corinthians, talking about heaven, right? So right now what we see is just kind of a mirror. And once we see Christ face to face, what we know in part now we'll know fully, and you'll be fully known by Christ as you're in heaven, right? What a beautiful promise. And then one of my favorite sets of verses is the armor of God, Ephesians 6, 10 through 18. And here is when it's interesting to see what version he posted. I should go research that. I know it's not the New King James, the King James version, which I tell people all the time. It's beautiful written Bible, but it's one of the my least favorite to teach on, because it doesn't use our current language. Many of the words have changed. The original language that the Bible was written in, which is Hebrew and Greek, primarily, right? There's a little bit of Aramaic in it, but almost all Hebrew and Old Testament, Greek in the New Testament. Those do not have the special verbs like the haths and the that you have in Poetic English. So it's one of the worst Bibles you can use is the 1611 King James Version if you really want to learn what the Bible's trying to tell you, the original authors in Hebrew and Greek, right? So you can see this is a much better version that Cueanon is using. So let's listen to what Ephesians 6:10 through 18. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggles is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, and the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the saints. Ephesians 6:10 through 18. Cueanon posts these two beautiful scriptures in post 1886 tonight. I just think that is so awesome. And then he moves into in 1887, and we're about ready to wrap this up, and I'm going to do a separate video on the more deeper pedo stuff he's getting into. I'm going to do a separate video on that, and that's probably the one where I'll do a prophecy and some longer prayer and discussion for those of you who are late nighters and want to hang in with me. So here's 1887. You got Sarah A. Carter with an article about the report found that Al-Qaeda is still a global network showing resilience and is stronger than ISIS in places like Somalia, Yemen, and South Asia. So you can see U.S. panel warns of new threat from Al-Qaeda, bin Laden's son. And this says Sarah Carter on Somalia and Yemen, relevant to the latest Q. There's a link to it. You can go look at that. It's a good article. But here's what Q basically says, amplifying on that article, saying, has intel been shared with our enemies in an effort to warn them against capture and kill? Obviously, when Q asks a question like that, that's usually yes, meaning that we were letting people off that we should have been capturing. How long did it take to locate, kill UBL, Osama bin Laden? Talk a long time, right? How many times did we locate UBL in the past and stand down orders were given? Woo! Stand down orders. Why did the White House put itself in the middle of every op? Question mark. Because they wanted to protect. They wanted to protect those ones they wanted to protect. Why did POTUS immediately remove the White House from the chain of command military engagement equation? So the generals could do their job finally for the first time in 8 years. That's why. How has POTUS been able to essentially destroy ISIS within the first year of his presidency, but Hussein could not throughout his entire term? Because it wasn't his objective to destroy ISIS. What is JB's background? That's John Brennan. Muslim by faith? Just answered the question. What is Hussein's background? Muslim by faith? Answered the question. What is Valerie Jarrett's background? Muslim by faith? Answered the question right there. Again, I think there's very loving Muslims out there. I have some good friends that are, but obviously the Muslim Brotherhood and what they were supporting and letting ISIS off the hook and letting Al-Qaeda off the hook was a very it's all going to come out. It was criminal activity, treason by these people he just mentioned, John Brennan, Hussein, and Valerie Jarrett. not to mention bunch of other people. Okay, let's keep on going here. So there's an article here about the Podesta emails, alluding to a lot of this, and you can go look at that. I'm not gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna skip that. But it says, why was the Hussein administration breaking down admin by faith? And you'll see this literally talked. Well, I'm not bringing it up because it's a pretty important piece of it. And it says, why was the public sheltered regarding ISIS? And so here's that WikiLeaks, and you can see it basically says list from Podesta attached, and it broke up all these different types of jobs and whether they were Muslim or Christian or whatever. It says Asian American candidates, Muslim American candidates, etc. So the candidates were broken down by faith for a specific reason. Why was the public sheltered regarding ISIS for so long? Why was Al-Qaeda deemed the primary adversary versus ISIS? Because they wanted ISIS to go take over Syria and build pipelines from Syria down to Qatar for their wealth through Turkey, and that was one of the big plans. There are a bunch of other regions taking over Libya, etc. They wanted the unrest. Why was Al-Qaeda deemed the primary adversary versus ISIS? Okay. Why do you believe U.S. intel did not know UBL's son was a prominent figure in Al-Qaeda? If no live intel or GOT to target? Define CIA regional assets. Operation Cyclone. Mujahideen Afghanistan. Aiding anti-Soviet resistance. Withdrawal of Soviet troops. Control of $800 million plus. Control of weapons. Control of training. Afghan Arabs. Haqqani plus Hekmatyar. UBL critical allies, ? Habiani plus Hekmatyar, relations with CIA in country, ? Dark to light. So there was major corruption and protection is what we're getting at here. Major. And that is scary stuff, guys, when you start looking at what happened in our past administration. This is not just all about it's not just all about the internally what was happening here. It was the fact that we grew our terrorists in the United States and outside of the United States as well. And here's another article on 1888 that starts going into Sarah Carter talks about exclusive, still anxious over Comey's testimony, hopes firewalls will hold. So they found new text messages between Orr and Christopher Still that says he was anxious over Comey's testimony and hopes the firewalls will hold. So firewall Q, he says. What is a firewall? Well, this kind of logical thinking Q, he says in this next one, and he gives us some articles as well as some old drops. And so 1890 has this article that says, repeated the same thing, the firewalls, right? And then it comes up and it says, and he reposts on 129 when Q posted, narrative shift, nation on alert. Firing Rod Rosenstein equals block Mueller. Firing Rod Rosenstein equals set up to firing Mueller. Firing Rod Rosenstein equals red line. That's, to me, the firewall they're talking about there. The firewall is Rod Rosenstein. Right? They've got to keep Rod Rosenstein in place to try to protect them all from knowing everything. And that's what Christopher Still was hoping the firewall would work. So I think that's the main thing they're talking about. Then there's a lot more of this post, and it has the American flag here, and it says, James Coney tweet translation, Special Agent Andrew McCabe stood tall over the last 8 months. And Q saying that means do not talk. Then Comey says, when small people, and Q says sheep, is what he means. We're trying to tear down an institution we all depend on. And then Q says that means cover. He served with distinction for 2 decades. We own your family, you and your family. I wish Andy well. 187. They threatened to kill him. I also wish continued strength for the rest of the FBI. General threat to the others. Americans need you. activate sleeper cells. So anyway, interesting stuff where Q's going back to those old posts all the way from January, and how that alludes to the firewall that now Christopher Steele was all worried that they're gonna lose it. Then 1892 gets into the Guardian article where the CIA admits to spying on Senate staffers. This was way back in, I think, 2012. But never forget, Black Ops Against USA. This is all capitals. Q's passionate about this. Never forget, Black Ops Against USA. Total takeover of our country. What no agency linked the data. Traitors all Q. Wow. Guys, we've hit an hour, and now we're getting into the fun stuff. That's going to get into a lot of the real Q's really attacking in a different way. So I'm going to end this video here with just a quick prayer, and then we'll move on to the next video. Those you want to come on in about 10 minutes or so. Heavenly Father, just thank you so much for all these drops that are telling us the truth and exposing the real evil and truth here, so that we can clean this up and your new righteousness can come and sweep this land and sweep this world. Lord, please protect the patriots, protect President Trump, protect the children that are in captivity. Once you free them, please heal them, reunite them with their families. Lord, we just ask for your continued hand to be on this nation. We can see it right before our eyes, everything happening. Lord, we just pray you confuse the enemy's plans and allow these plans of the white hats, the NSA, the military intelligence, Trump, and the people that are trying to get the criminals out of the government, just bless them with massive wisdom and insight and just supernatural power, Lord. We know that that's how Trump got elected, and we know we need to continue your supernatural power. It's the only way we can survive this, Lord. Thank you for this. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. Hey guys, sorry for doing this to you, but it's over an hour on this video, and it's such many drops. I'm splitting into a second video, and so I'll chat with you a little bit later on this second video. So I'm signing off for now. Just let me wrap this up to say, Q versus the world. Yes, Mossad is not only in control of the politicians, Republicans and Democrats, not only control of Mockingbird Media, they're also in control of the alternative media. It's controlled opposition, a new level of sophistication that I never even thought of. But they literally are doing exactly what Lenin said. What did Lenin say? He said, right here, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Vladimir Lenin. It's controlled opposition. That's QAnon Post, the first half of them anyway, through August 15th. God bless you guys. We'll talk to you next time.